wondering, since you have kids at that age, remember going outside or being told to go outside and just inventing entire universes in my mind. And do kids still do that? Do they still play outside by themselves and do things like that? To me, Calvin and Hobbes, one of the things that made that so enjoyable is I pretty much identified with Calvin in many ways. So, what, Southern, do you still send your boy out to play like that?
He doesn't go outside alone. So I live inside the city. So if he goes outside, he's going outside with somebody else. But he's pretty much a solo player. So he doesn't mind like doing like colonizing upstate whereas his meditation. Now, as Asian Falls has an older cousin who's allowed to go back there and go off and do their own little thing.
I'm getting you pixelated quite a bit. Dr. A, are you hearing her pixelating as well? Okay, Southern, I don't know what's going on there. I couldn't really make that out. Nope, still pixelating. You gotta love technology. Welcome, Tap. Glad to have you back into a speaking role. I know you're busy working, so good to have you. Dr. A, I updated the plan with all of the items to include your campaign update. So if you could get
Thank you. I literally just pressed my coffee, so thank you.
What is this? You're not allowed to have caffeine. Oh, wait. What time is it in California? Like, what, 8:51 right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, I caused a little firestorm over the weekend on Facebook by saying, what's funny is you never know what's going to go viral and what isn't. Basically just said there's a doctor here in Frisco that is against the mayoral candidate that I prefer, and he's putting out all types of content. And so he had one where he was satirically calling for jihad. I didn't find it very funny. And so I posted that and said all Christians should boycott the place where he works. And 500 something comments later, I don't know how many reposts. And then you have the usual liberal trolls, which we're going to talk a little bit about here in just a second, come out and saying those things. Go ahead, Nick.
They're not real. They're not real. Like, you can't give it any weight.
Well, I agree with you, but there are a few that are real, correct? But there are, and then you've got your Muslims coming out and saying, no, really, we are a religion of peace. Tell it to the dead Nigerians. So then
that one of my biggest trolls is a real person. So there's that.
Yeah, the troll. Now, have you been heckled at a campaign stop?
I call this guy my troll, but he's actually come out to be somebody who's helping me because he has a very different brain and he comes from a very different place. So I lovingly call him my campaign agitator.
Agitators.
We do.
All right, so getting back to what you said, Southern, you don't let him play outside, so let me see if we can hear you. No, don't hear her at all. Ugh. Okay, Southern, I'm going to drop, actually, go ahead and drop yourself, and I'll move you back up. That way it doesn't, okay, there we go. All right, so Dr. A, did you let your kids play outside alone? I did, but they had to stay, like, within the confines of the neighborhood. And it was a pretty safe area, but I'll be honest with you, there was always that little fear in the back of my mind that something might happen to them. So you keep one eye on them, at least you look out the window, that type of thing. Have those days gone where, because I'm going to be honest, in the 80s, I was a free-range child. I pretty much...
Well, as was I, but we don't live in that area anymore, right? And so we live in a suburban area, fairly quiet. My children walked 2 blocks to school. They did walk on their own, and we live in a court. So I gave my kids free reign of our house, which is a corner property, like our house and the court, but they couldn't go beyond that without my daughter or I walking with them or riding with them or whatever they were going to do, with the exception that they had a friend like up the street and around the corner. If they were riding their bikes, I would let them go. No, it's hard.
All right. Well, we are 1 minute before that. Southern, go ahead and try and answer again. Let's see if we've got you up.
How about now?
I've got you, Lee Mature.
So he's little. We live in the city. He doesn't go outside and play on his own. He's very good at playing on his own when we do take him outside, but he's always supervised. At his aunt's house, though, he has an older cousin who's only 2 years older. They're allowed to go outside there and do their thing, and they do boy things.
Got it.
That's cool.
Awesome. All right. So the rules of the space are pretty simple. Don't talk too long or we'll ding you. Don't cuss. My mom doesn't like it. And don't talk over other people. All right, it is 5 minutes still, so it's time for the question of the day, and there has been a lot of controversy out and a lot of humor that's come out because of the casting in the Odyssey. And Nolan has taken a lot of heat, the director, for this. However, I did not know, and I do now, that the Academy Awards has changed their rules to where you have to have diversity to qualify to be eligible to win an Academy Award. Now, granted, the ultimate success or failure of this initiative will be at the box office. I will tell you point blank, I have no intention of seeing this, and I love the Iliad and I love the Odyssey as a child. I love the stories. Okay, I love Greek mythology. I thought it was awesome. But you cannot cast a transgender person as Achilles. That is Achilles. He's an Achilles. It's one of those things. You just can't do it. And I'm sorry, but Homer described Helen of Troy as being blonde and blue-eyed. And again, if that's your version of beauty, great. If you have a different version like the actress they've cast, that's great too. She is a very pretty woman, but she is not Helen of Troy, according to Homer. So again, I find it ridiculous, and based off of this, and I know why he did it, I have no intention of seeing it, and I hope it is absolutely the worst bomb ever. So, Southern, do you plan on seeing the Odyssey?
Absolutely not. I don't watch any movies that have transgender people playing the other role, especially since I have a family and stuff. I just tend to not watch them.
How do you, what is that actress, or what is the actress's name that's playing Achilles? Just look at it. It's not capable of playing Achilles. Brad Pitt, I heard that he trained for 6 months and gained 20 pounds of muscle to play Achilles in the original, as well as trained in hand-to-hand combat so that he would be prepared to do it. And what's funny, little known fact, he actually tore his Achilles tendon while he was doing that, which shows you that God does have a sense of humor. What about you, Dr. A? Are you going to go see that show?
No, way, shape, or form. I just feel like Hollywood is trying to rewrite history, along with our schools, by the way. Rewrite history in order to match their contorted and distorted view of the world, and I'm not riding with them.
No, I'm right there with you. All right, what about you, Tap?
So I'm not going to see the movie, but I did want to update y'all that the reason that they're doing this is in this version, Helen doesn't actually get saved because Achilles gets slaughtered, right out of the gate. And I'll be playing Helen.
Tap as Helen of Troy. Okay, nice. All right, everybody. We are 2 minutes before we get cranking up. Lucky Dog, do you want to opine on the Odyssey?
Well, I've got no plans to see it. As I said, it doesn't pique my interest at all, so no.
That's a shame. I don't understand why they can't make good movies. Now, here's what will be interesting. And again, it will be word of mouth to see how it fares, but there is a movie coming out on, I believe it's July 3rd, called Young Washington. And I cannot wait to see that. I hope it gets good reviews. I hope it's well done. I hope it's truthful. I don't know much more about it other than the trailer looks great. So, with that being said, let's get started. All right, everyone, this is The Reckoning. It is 18 May 2026, show number 326, and 1 hour of unfiltered political truth starts now. Right now, there is a fight in Texas between citizens who understand that electricity and water are scarce resources and our politicians that have been bought out by big tech to build data centers. This is an example of the larger problem in our political system. Money is trumping the will of the people. We are watching an industry that leads to the sexual bondage of children, skyrocketing crime rates, and dramatic suicide increases, spend $500,000 just to determine who our next agricultural commissioner will be in Texas. The same industry spent millions in the Republican primary to ensure that they get a vote in the Texas legislature on whether or not we're going to have gambling, or, as they prefer to be known now, resort destinations. Now, this gambling lobby is led by a man named Judas Drew Springer. All right, he is doing everything he can to advance Satan's cause inside of my state. All right. Now, having served on the resolutions committee in the local county Republican Party, I can tell you that the Republican Party and the people that it represents are doing their very best to tell our legislators, that we want control of our government. From Sharia to AI to data centers to taxes, we addressed every single one of these in our legislative priorities. Now, I don't know that we're going to succeed, though, because there are politicians like my opponent in the past election, that literally think the party is irrelevant and unimportant. And they believe that because they can spend $1.6 million to overturn an election and vote out a popular grassroots opponent. So money and subservience to corporate interests is currently trumping the will of the people. In my city right now, the city of Frisco, Texas, I see Islamic money flooding one mayoral candidate's campaign coffers to undermine the will of the people. On Tuesday night, there will be a vote as to whether or not a mosque is allowed to be built in the city. The mayor previously promised this to get one of our city council women elected. They are undermining the will of the people because the people in Frisco, Texas do not want that mosque. Now, I don't know what it's going to take to make us understand what is happening to our government. I think we do know it. We just don't think we can do anything about it, and that's why we don't. How many times do you hear people say, why are they doing this? The answer is because politicians are never held accountable. Even attempting to censure representatives is not successful because there is no will in the higher party offices to fight. I'm reminded of the fact that in order to deter war, you must not only have the weapons to do it, which we have in Rule 44 in our party, but you have to have the will to fight also. And that's where the politicians and their money come in. Do we still have that will to fight as Americans? Is it still in us? Now, I believe it is, but right now it's buried beneath a layer of dross. I feel like our country is in a quicksand of lies, slowly drowning, slowly suffocating, and that's just the way the enemy likes it. If you've read the Screw Tape letters, the devil and evil want us to lead a very undramatic life, easing alone, being tolerant of deviancy and evil, preaching unity with the sinful, all wrapped in a glittering bow as they slowly usher you into eternal separation from your loved ones, your creator, and into a fiery burning hell. I know that we as a nation cannot overcome this, but I know a guy, a Jewish carpenter that lived 2,000 years ago that can save us as a nation. His principles, his teachings can and will restore us as a people. And by following him and his church, we can truly make our nation great again, which is what we really all want. All right. That's the rant for the day. Thank you for listening. Now let's talk a little bit about some politics. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I did not cover the Xi summit, Trump summit, because I don't think really anything dramatic came out of it. So a couple of things were said, though, that I think we should cover. President Trump has said that he doesn't want to travel 9,500 miles to fight a war over Taiwan. Now, as a student of history, I cannot help but hearken back to Lyndon Baines Johnson. I will not send American boys 14,000 miles away to fight a war that Asian boys should be fighting. And look where that got us. Now, I'm not looking, as Trump said, to have somebody go independent and know we're supposed to travel 9,500 miles to fight a war. President Trump told Brett Baer. I'm not looking for that. I want them to cool down. I want China to cool down. So what about Taiwan? Now, Taiwan is a flashpoint that I pay attention to, and it is strategically important for three main reasons. First of all, it is still indispensable to global semiconductor production. And it sits at the center of the Western Pacific security architecture. Again, by controlling Taiwan, we can basically cut off an entire seaboard of China, and they know it. Now, there are other choke points with China. They are honestly severely geographically challenged if it comes to a war. But China and Taiwan still remain a major flashpoint for U.S.-China relations. Now, what's been going on since President Trump got elected? There are U.S. chip fabricators, many of whom that are based in the state of Arizona, that are busy turning Arizona into the new Taiwan. And that is what President Trump wants. That is his perspective. The only thing that I think matters to President Trump about Taiwan are the chips. Now, I think South Korea, Japan, and Australia have a very different view of that. So we'll see how important that is to President Trump. I think honestly the Chinese made a grave mistake. They absolutely should have taken Taiwan in 2023 or 2022, and they just didn't do it. Now, let's talk overall, though. I want you to look at the world overall. I feel like, and maybe it's just because I've been dialing down into the local instead of staying at the strategic level, but I personally feel like the flashpoints in the world that could ignite World War 11, or I guess would it be 12 now? I get confused. Oh, no, it's going to be World War 3. But the flashpoints that could ignite World War 3 are honestly cooling down. I think Ukraine has cooled because we're not interested in heating it up. And I think Iran, even as we continue the air war over there, has cooled down because I don't think the enemies of America that are capable of a greater war, China and Russia, are going to do anything to ignite one over Iran. So the larger war is waning in my mind, but I'm curious what your overall thoughts are. Is it because I'm not paying attention to the macro strategic picture, whereas you guys might be, or am focused instead on things like mayor's race, local Republican Party priorities? What are your thoughts? And I'll come to you, Dr. A, first as a congressional candidate, and then to you, Southern.
Well, however, I think that the G summit, although I was quite concerned about Trump's travel over there, was brilliant because CCP has been the primary funder behind Iran. So if we're going to try to stabilize Iran, he needed China's buy-in. So I'm thankful for that. If that cools, we still have the Middle East is a hotbed, but always will be. But China and Russia have played into that. So I think we're in a temporary holding pattern.
I don't know. We'll see what definitely happens there. All right. What about you, Southern? What do you think?
So I'm more concerned on local and federal elections. But when it comes to this, I don't like some of the deals that were made. I don't want more Chinese businesses here. I don't want more Chinese taking over farms. Those were concerning to me. As far as the whole war thing, I want peace. I don't care how they get it. Well, I care about bringing other businesses, other country businesses into our country. But as far as whatever deals they're making, as far as oil and stuff, just do it. Get it over with.
No, I hear what you're saying there, and we'll talk about oil in just a second. Tap, you want to opine on the Chinese summit or China?
I think it was really good for optics. I think there may be some more things that come out of it at this time, but overall, I didn't expect much of it, and it turned out what it needed to be for me. I don't mind President Trump's comments about Taiwan because ultimately, if it were not for semiconductor chips, I myself, as a red-blooded American of multiple genders, would not be bothered at all by the idea of Taiwan being reunified with West Taiwan. It makes no difference to me, and I don't think any American blood should be lost on it. But if there's somehow that we can somehow prevent it without sacrificing much just to annoy West Taiwan, then I think it's worth it.
I do like that, West Taiwan. Now, are you getting that from, can't remember, the guy that does the airplanes and puts the...
Control line process.
There you go. He is fantastic. I'll be honest with you. He's hard to find on, I don't know. I feel like things that I like get buried in the algorithm. It gets back to what Nick was talking about with bots earlier. Again, our opinion is so easy to shape these days. It's just hard to cut through some things. And even that, when you think you're at a truth, you realize you're coming at it from a certain perspective. So let's talk about oil in Canada. And I have a very certain perspective on this right now. The Canadian federal government was supposed to privatize the Trans Mountain oil pipeline, but it is reconsidering that right now amid a surge in appetite for Canadian crude to replace lost Middle Eastern barrels. Since the expanded TMX pipeline launched in 2024, exports to Asia, meaning China, have surged with up to 70% of shipments from British Columbia headed to Asian buyers as of late 2025. So Canadian officials now are seeing this TMX pipeline as highly profitable and a very strategically important asset with potential for further expansion. Now, I do agree with them. It is a very strategically important asset. Now, the prior narrative from the government of Canada was that this pipeline should be returning to private hands. All right. They said that they have changed their tune though, because they've said that was a different market and a different time. So indeed, I would agree. It is a very different market than the government in Ottawa, when the government in Ottawa had to step in and buy Trans Mountain from Kinder Morgan. Now, there's a couple of things about really have always bothered me. All right. So Kinder Morgan was a company that was basically forced out of the business because of relentless pressure from climate activists who used environmental regulations and judgments from liberal judges to strangle the expansion project until the government took it. Now, the price tag for the nationalization deal, which took place in 2018, was about $3.3 billion. And as the Trudeau government quickly signaled, it would start looking for buyers as soon as possible. I promise by 2024, the cost of the pipeline expansion project had swelled to about $23 billion. Nick or somebody else, could you guys look up what they say that pipeline is worth nowadays? All right. The project, somewhat surprisingly, was completed. I thought the environmental activists didn't want it to be complete. I thought the judges wanted to stop it. And the expanded pipeline, launched in May, is now running at 3 times its original capacity of reaching a total capacity of 890,000 barrels of oil per day. Now, the destination for these barrels was always the Asian market as a way to diversify away from who? The United States, which for decades has been pretty much the only foreign market for Canadian crude. All right, so Nick just sent me, it didn't highlight in what you sent. How much? Just go ahead.
So in US dollars, $24 billion right now.
Okay, so they bought it for 3.3. But it says the cost of the pipeline expansion contract is swollen to $23 billion. So they could sell it and make $1 billion roughly?
That is correct, because of the long-term contracts and renewals that are set to go through 2040.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right. So let's get back to this. So right now, they are diversifying their market away from the United States. All right. Now, what used to happen is they would send that crude down to the U.S. Gulf Coast, Texas, and from there to markets overseas. With the new pipeline, Canadian crude producers get a new, more convenient channel to distribute to Asian buyers. Now, Nick is going to put a copy of the map of where this pipeline actually goes into the pill. But it didn't take long for it to be felt. So the pipeline expanded during the spring of 2025, and the average flow rates for shipment to China reached 207,000 barrels a day. This compares with an average of 173,000 barrels per day that go to the United States. The shift has become even more marked since spring. Right now, or as of October 25, 70% of Canadian crude exported from the British Columbian coast was going to China. Now, Canada is seeing this as a golden opportunity to become a major global oil player as the war in the Middle East limits sources of crude and natural gas. The head of the International Energy Agency, Faith Burrell, said earlier this month, the cost of missing this train will be incredible. So here's my thoughts on this overall. The Canadian Armed Forces, right now, their total personnel is 100,000 people. The U.S. Armed Forces total size is 2.1 million active uniformed personnel and reserve. America, and I'll be honest with you, if you can't control the sky, you don't have an army, you don't have a navy. America has 2,000 fighter aircraft. Canada has 90, and they're all reliant on American parts and American software. So when it comes to defense, Canada is basically a Pomeranian, and we are a Great Dane militarily. And yet they are selling oil to our adversary instead of us. I want President Trump to be at his most imperial right now. I want him to tell Canada no. If it results in 2 cents cheaper per gallon for the American taxpayer, that's what I want. These North American leeches in Ottawa need to remember that they are a Pomeranian to our Great Dane. I want to go full Roman Empire right now. The way the Romans stripped Spain of their silver, I want to strip Canada of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia. But I might not have to do that militarily, right? Because the Albertan people signed a petition which said we want an independence vote in October. And they were supposed to have that on October 19th. But what just happened? It was derailed by, guess who? A Canadian federal judge, because they didn't consult the Indians. Feather, not red dot. So we have an oppressed people, our great citizens of Alberta, being governed by a tyrannical socialist government, the Kearney regime in Ottawa. And as a bonus, they have oil. As Jon Stewart would say, sounds like they need the full executive platinum independence package. They have oil. We want their oil. They need to come home to daddy. So I think it's time for us to punish Canada for their effrontery of actually providing our enemy with oil and take Alberta, Saskatchewan, Vancouver, and British Columbia. I want them all, and I want them now. Go ahead, Tab.
I can certainly respect the Canadians going out and trying to bolster their economy by selling to our peer competitor. The recent administration that we have under President Trump, no matter what we may support when it comes to his policies, you're Canadians, there's a certain sense that there's a need to diversify away from dependence on America. There's a certain amount of pride, but I think no nation necessarily wants to be a vassal state. So what they're doing to me is ultimately no different than what Europe, especially Germany and others, have done in coupling up to Russian natural gas and other pipelines prior to the Ukrainian war. And when that war did kick off, we saw how that dependence on oil from people that aren't aligned with your values can make it easy to disrupt your life and that of your people. And so in the same way, if something kicks off with, say, West Taiwan going for Taiwan, and we do sanctions that day, Canada will be a target of those sanctions. And if China falls or takes a hit, then so will too Canada's economy. And so I think this is definitely a long-term risk for them. I think they have to do optics from the sense of pride and saving face to try and do something to keep their economy afloat while trade moves away much on end of their part out of pride to not do business with the United States. But it is a severe risk. And if needed, when the time comes, we can easily take them with a conflict with China, that thing, and just keep the Canadians in line and then figure out what to do with them later. But I still insist that I do not want them a part of our union because the culture is not compatible. But I do love their oil. Oh, God. Oh, my. Do I love it.
Me too. Now, I got to ask a question. Have you only been to the eastern part of Canada, the cheese-eating surrender French weasel part, or have you been out to Alberta in that area?
Oh, I'm speaking from ignorance and the lack of being cosmopolitan. I have never been to the great nation of Canada.
Okay, so again, in my previous life, I flew all over the place, but I also would actually go on vacation in Canada and Alberta, especially when the Canadian dollar was so weak. I would take my family up there and go ski up there. The Albertans are, like Montanans, and I'm going to call them Yellowstone Montanans. And I'm talking about Rip and that crowd, not Yellowstone like Custer and that crowd. So I think honestly that Western Canadians would make great Americans. Now, like I said, the cheese-eating surrender weasels on the east side of Canada, no thank you. Go ahead, Dr. A.
So I am going to be a little bit contrarian.
That's all right.
My bestie lives in Alberta, and Albertans and Saskatchewans, for the most part, would love to blend in and be more like America and be more a free country within their borders. But I don't believe that British Columbia and Vancouver would be an asset in that way. Yes, they're gorgeous. Yes, I've had family live there. I'm sorry, guys, but they're much more socialistic in nature. I don't believe that they would blend well or help any type of vote for sanity in the United States of America. So if you're only talking about having them split off from Canada and being a near neighbor and friend, great. If you're talking about being a state within our union, that would be a hard no for me.
Okay, again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm well aware that Vancouver is like a softer, weaker, more liberal version of Seattle. I got all that, but that's where the pipeline is. I mean, that's where it terminates if you look at the map. So we got to have British Columbia and unfortunately Vancouver to get that. Now, the question I have is if we did annex them, how many of them would be like Rosie O'Donnell? I'm immigrating. I'm leaving. I mean, that would be ideal. And then they could all go to Montreal and the smelly, cheese-eating, tobacco-stained part of Canada as opposed to the Western cowboy part. I got to be honest with you. You're right, Dr. A, when you said it's beautiful. It is absolutely stunning up there. I went and skied at Sunshine and a couple of other resorts. And then that was before I just decided to stay home in the U.S. and go to Crested Butte all the time. But anyway, I will move on to the next topic. And now this one, I need a little bit of leeway. Go ahead, Tap, before we move on.
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking, why is it okay for us to sell to China and to allow the Venezuelans to sell to China and to allow the Iranian oil to get through to China, but we don't want Canada selling to China? Why do we need to enforce against them specifically? Just thinking out loud, sir.
No, I'm with you, except we've already stopped the Iranian oil from going to China. We've stopped the Venezuelan oil from going to China. And now we should stop the Canadian oil as well. I think maybe while President Trump was worried about step 1 and 2 of strangling Chinese oil, number 3 ramped up on us and we weren't really paying attention. That's my theory, but I don't think it's okay at all. I don't want anybody to sell oil to China. I want the gears of Chinese machinery to break for lack of oil. So anyway, that's my thought. But I look at the world through red, white, and blue glasses completely. All right, I want to talk a little bit about woke, and bear with me for just a second on this. There was a French intellectual. His name, I guess, is Breviel Lepogam. That's what he goes by on X. Wrote a tightly focused and brief explanation of why you should blame the French for woke. What he said was French philosopher historian Michael Foucault, another guy named Jacques Derrida, and French philosopher literary critic Gilles Deleuze all made some claims. The first claim was that there was no such thing as truth, just power relationships. The second of whom, Derrida, claimed that truth was malleable, and the third made the really weird claim that seeds were better than fully developed trees because becoming was more important than being. So let's take these step by step, if you don't mind. Now, Foucault taught that truth does not exist, that there are only power relations disguised as knowledge, that science, reason, justice, the medical institution, the school, the prison, sexuality, everything is merely a staging of domination. Now let's contrast that with the philosopher I follow, John 8:31 through 32. If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Truth liberates rather than oppresses. All right, Derrida, the second of the two, taught that texts have no stable meaning, that every single signifier slips away, that every reading is a betrayal that the author is dead and the reader reigns supreme. In other words, a fluidity of the truth. All right? Again, that's woke democratic philosophy. Here's where my philosophy comes from. Psalm 119, 160. The sum of your word is truth, and every one of your righteous rules endures forever. All right, the third, Deleuze, taught that we should prefer the rhizome to the tree, the seed, to the tree, the nomad to the sedentary, desire to the law, becoming to being, difference to identity. What the hell does that even mean? I mean, I get what it means, but the seed to the tree, the nomad to the sedentary, we build societies by being not sedentary, but at least rooted in one place. We have rules as a society that enable our safety that have to be fixed, whereas they want them to flow. Desire to the law becoming different. Desire to identity becoming different. No, I am who I was made to be when I was formed in the womb. Let's look at Psalm 1:3. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. This verse directly celebrates the tree, deeply rooted, stable, hierarchical in structure, trunk, branches, ordered growth, sedentary, fixed in place as the ideal for the righteous person who delights in and meditates on God's law. All right, so again, taken individually, their theses are debatable. When you combine them all together, export them, and polarize them, they form a system. And that system is the woke poison that infected our society and has destroyed everything we hold sacred. That's exactly the way it was intended to do by the master of the Democratic Party, Satan. Now, the antidote for this poison is to be found in the fount of all wisdom, which is the Holy Bible. Let me go again to my philosophy. Numbers 21, 8, 9, and John 3, 14, and 15. Okay, back in Numbers, while the Jewish people were on their 40-year journey, they were getting bit by poisonous serpents as a judgment for their sin from God. Moses made a bronze serpent, stuck it on a pole, and anyone that was bitten by a snake simply had to look at it and have faith that they would be healed, and they would be. This is exactly what happened to my philosopher years and years later when he said, as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him may have eternal life. So here's where I'm going with it. What is wrong in American society to where we reject all the old truths all the time, when the answer to a good life is simple: obedience and discipline? As a younger man, I would not have understood this, but it really is that simple. So to all you 20-year-olds, and I hope there's a few that are listening, get in the book. It's simple: obedience and discipline. Tolerance of the left and the sin that they want you to embrace is treason to God. I didn't say that. My pastor did this weekend, and it was a great message from her. One more warning to those on the left. The Bible is clear. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Now, I talked in the beginning of the show about a post I made, and there were a ton of comments beneath it. And all of those said things like, well, you're just uneducated. Again, you can't respond to that stuff without sounding arrogant, but I graduated from the United States Air Force Academy, which is a great college. I have a lifetime of traveling the world and seeing different cultures. Uneducated is not something you can call me. I'm sorry, you just can't. Well, you're not tolerant. I am called by God to not be tolerant of evil, to live my life righteously. Have I succeeded in all things? No. I have failed miserably at times, but I've come back home. I've come back to what is right. Okay, why is this so hard? Another thing, well, we need unity. I don't need unity with the sinful. I don't. I need to tell them that what they're doing is wrong, love them, and hope for them to be transformed back into righteousness. That's the commandment. I am not called on to be unified with evil. I am called to stand for what is strong and true and right. Remember, the world will hate you if you're doing what's right. Do you have that character to do what is right at all times? To stand up to the braying masses and say you are wrong? I believe you do. I really do. I have faith. Dr. A, I have faith in Southern being a good mom. Tap doing his work. Okay, all the rest of you guys. Jim down there doing his best to hold Republican legislators accountable. It's simple, guys. It really is. Obedience and discipline. That's the key to life. All right. My question is, am I off base? What do you think? Okay, as much as I love President Trump and as much as I have personally sacrificed for him, he cannot alone make America great again. He is clearly not going to have the help of the Senate and the House. What is it going to take to make it morning in America again? Dr. A.
I just want to clarify something that you said in case someone heard it with different ears. You said it's simple. No, it's not simple. It's a simple principle, but it's really hard to execute in life.
Fair enough.
But we have to try.
No, you're absolutely right. It is definitely hard to implement that. But you remember being younger, and I'm speaking on the cusp of turning 60. All right. Do you remember being younger and thinking, it's just so complex? All these old people with their simple life, they don't know what's right and wrong. At least I thought that of my great-grandparents. I mean, they grew up and electricity was a newfangled thing. Or the television was new to my parents. What is it about youth where we don't see the simple truths that are involved? Go ahead, Tap. And then, Nick, I want you to answer that question.
Yeah, to make a difference, Americans must have a ownership mindset in their daily life, not just about the work that they're responsible for, their family, but this nation as well. about remembering that we're interconnected. And part of that is being part of a community, which goes to walking closer with Christ. Those two things are the things that would lead to a wake up in America, because that creates the initiative and the path of each American in their day-to-day actions to try and do the right thing and to be that change, rather than waiting on a strong personality or leader in the federal government to affect that change forward.
Great comments there. You know, you talk about interconnectivity. How do you know who your neighbors are? All right, Nick. So the question for you is, what do you think is needed to make America great again?
So something that we talk about a lot is it starts within the household, within the household, then it goes to the community, then the church, then your city, and then your state, and then the national government, right? What you're seeing all of our adversaries doing is exactly that framework. And that's what we need to be doing within the household. Are you praying with your kids? Are you reading the Bible together as a family? As a community, what kind of Bible studies are you doing? Are you going to church? Are you actively involved in the church? And then from there, what outreach is going on within the city? And then from there, you take it to the state, and then that makes it to the national level.
You know, you're exactly right. I mean, Tap brought it up. It's interconnectivity. Okay, again, I am fortunate that I go to a church which preaches, I'm going to call it muscular Christianity. All right, we go out and do things, and it needs to continue. But that has got to spread nationwide. You know, it has got to be an ownership culture. It's interesting that Tap said that. I talked in the beginning in the rant about why does our government do that? Like there's some entity that we don't control or own. I talked about our powerlessness because of the corrosive influence of money. Yet, if we were all able to get behind a candidate that could get his message out, maybe we could actually take ownership again of our government and make it connected to the society again. The Republican Party that I believe in connects to the legislature, which changes the law to do what the people that feed the priorities into the party say to do. That's what a representative should do. That's what has to be in their heart, is that these people need to be led and guided, but at the same time, I am put there to do their will and the will of the party, not my own. I really think that it will take a revival on a national level for us to go back to being the people that we want to be. We have seen a president that wants change to happen, but because of our system of government, which again, don't throw the baby away with the bathwater, cannot make the changes by himself. So as we approach the November election, make sure you are voting for senators and representatives that believe what I just said to be in their heart of hearts, that they want to lead the people, but they represent them and will do their will. That's it. It's simple. Obedience to the people's will and discipline to follow through once in office. All right, let's talk another constant whipping boy. Now, in popular podcasts, this is called an evergreen topic, meaning that you can always come back to this and score some points. I'll move fairly quickly through this because I want to get to Dr. A's topic, but it's just interesting to me to continue to point out that the climate cult is taking a beat over and over and over again. Now, there's been fallout from the recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change ruling that computer model emissions pathway RCP 8.5, now again, I don't even really know what the RCP means, is only, they've declared it to be implausible. Most mainstream media fear-mongering stories over the last 15 years have to be moved now into your junk file, as do the pronouncements of how many politicians, like King Charles, Sir David Attenborough, who is that little person on the spectrum that keeps whining about the climate? I can't remember her name. Greta. So we need to ignore all of that. But basically, I think what RCP 5 was, yeah, I just got it from Nick. Thank you. Representative Concentration Pathway 8.5 is the high emissions climate change scenario used in climate modeling where greenhouse gases continue to rise throughout the 21st century. But the rot goes deeper than ill-informed public comment, all right, although that alone has been enormously influential in promoting the net zero fantasy. The activist-ridden science bodies. Now, I wanted you to think about that phrase, activist-ridden science bodies, such as the UK Met Office, have brazenly used RCP 8.5 to flame up weather predictions, which in turn has led to onerous requirements. All of these politicized predictions are now bogus. All of them, all right, need to be abolished. All of the regulatory things that came into power need to be thrown away. And I was glad to see Lee Zeldin and the EPA doing away with some of the Biden administration's restrictions on emissions from cars, because the science just isn't accurate. All right. Now, the first writer in science writer to spot the IPCC's rejection of 8.5 called it the most significant development in climate research in decades. He said that the scenario produced impossible futures, that the results have dominated climate research, headlines, and policy for the part of the last 2 decades. So the New York Times rushed right out and publicized the fact that the scenario was bogus and all the laws and all the fear-mongering they did was bogus, right? Yeah, no. Kind of like they still have their Pulitzers for Russiagate. The New York Times has stayed silent on the departure from RCP 8.5. Okay. The BBC has also said nothing, nor has The Guardian. The green blob-funded climate brief, all right, has covered RCP 8.5 more than any other English language publication, but they're being silent. A few are talking. Germany, you're seeing the Berliner Zeitung run an article saying that extreme climate scenarios played too large a role in public debate for too long. How many movies did we see like The Day After Tomorrow? It just got ridiculous there for a while. The popular climate crack pipe is apparently still difficult for some in the mainstream media to put down, but this is another branch of scientists that we no longer trust. I mean, I want you to think about this. We cannot trust the National Institute of Health. We can't trust the CDC. We can't trust the IPCC on climate. We can't trust the FDA on vaccines. Everything in every science is politicized. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. It makes me miss my life as an A-10 pilot, where everything was simple. Master arm on, gun rate high, pipper on target, pack one, refine, track, shoot, track. There really is nothing I trust anymore except my family. That's it. Dr. A even, correct me if I'm wrong, and you're welcome to put that poll in there, had her cred questioned, I believe, over the weekend as to whether or not she was really Maha. Dr. A, tell me a little bit about.
Well, first and foremost, I just wanted to formally announce previous Vice President Gore has officially been deemed a moron. So there you go. Just saying. His previous professor had already called him out on that, but, media didn't want to listen. Yeah, no, I have people who have tried to say that you're not Maha because I didn't try to run RFK Jr.'s campaign, I guess, when he ran as an independent. So, no, I'll put the poll. Can I put it up in the nest just so people can see it? It won't stay there after the room closes. But yeah, it's just a poll. Just check yes or no. Am I Maha? Have you known me to be Maha? And to your point about science, I concur wholeheartedly. I have been spewing from the top of the trees. And guys, this is why I wrote the book, Heal the Children, How Schools Promote Disease and How Parents Can Take Action. That is the very reason, because schools have been promoting science coming from the CDC and FDA and HHS and others about health, and it's all been wrong. Thankfully, that's one of the first things Bobby did is flip the food pyramid, but we've got so much more work to do.
But again, it goes back to lie. I mean, are they getting paid to lie? They have to be getting paid to lie. Why else would they?
The food industry and lobbyists are, yes, 100% in the case of the food pyramid. In the case of the other, yes, it's just a different industry, a different lobby, so much money to be made by climate change.
All right, so Southern is a relative contrarian on the show. Is there any branch of government that you trust? Any scientific body that I'll be honest with you. I trust the DOD because I know what is supposed to happen if you lie, but I'll be honest with you. I even trust them with a jaundiced eye.
No, I don't trust any.
I love that. The thing is, it's war kind of zero sum. We're either winning or not. Now, again, that's on the military field of battle. Politically, who knows? Who knows where the wind blows? And speaking of wind and blowing things up and shooting, Dr. A, tell us what happened over the weekend in regards to our love of our fellow man.
You're terrible with training. I was just trying to get the poll up in the top. Hang on, here we go. No, you're fine. And it's up there. Okay. Let me refresh. Okay, So, shootings this weekend. There were quite a number of shootings that happened this weekend, and surprisingly, most were not in sanctuary cities. I don't yet know the root cause behind each of the shootings. I'll share what we do know. But in this room, most of us understand that it's the individual committing the crime that is at fault, not somehow the choice of their weapon alone, right? The gun says, I want to go out and do something bad. So as recent shooting incidents, so this over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, include Atlanta around 2:45 a.m. on Friday. I'm saying that wrong. That's Saturday. 4 were shot. They were non-fatal. The victims are all adults. They reported an unidentified group of people suddenly opening fire in the area. 2 found shot on Forsyth Street, a 3rd near the bus station, and a 4th self-transported with an ankle wound. All were stable. Multiple suspects are still at large. No arrests announced. Motive appears random or a group dispute. No gang label in initial reports. Downtown area has a history of transient or criminal activity, but too early for confirmed motive.
Pause for just a second. All right, so it's Atlanta, so we know the police force is politicized. And I cannot think of anything other than a street gang where you would have mass shooting occur by multiple individuals. So you said multiple suspects, meaning was there one shooter or more than one shooter? Because if there's more than one shooter, I'm going to suspect gang activity, and I'm going to suspect that they're lying to me. If there's just one shooter but multiple suspects as to who that shooter is, that's a different story.
I agree with you. And they do suspect multiple individuals involved in the shootings. And I agree. This is not just going to be some transient activity when there's multiple people involved. No. Mm-mm.
See, it's, again, crime statistics. You can't trust that. There was something I wanted to look up, and I can't trust that. Again, there were a couple of things for the show I wanted to look up today. For example, like how much metric tonnage of carbon dioxide does the American automobile produce and versus a volcano erupting. Now, again, even scales of volcanoes erupting, there's different. I get, but I don't trust the numbers. I don't trust any numbers on crime. I tried to look up something the other day, like racial divisions of crime, and couldn't get that. Why? Because the police, they don't report anything accurately anymore. We can't trust any data from any government source.
Just to be clear, carbon dioxide is a natural part of our ecosystem. Plant more trees. What we don't have answers to is when lithium-ion batteries burn and that gets into the environment, we're creating new environmental hazards in the name of protecting the planet. This green energy is creating more problems. What about the solar panels, right? Oh, what happens when those either wear out or break down or get blown over in a windstorm? They're toxic, right? We're creating more problems that we don't have answers to in the name of making it better. It's terrible. Absolutely unscientific.
No, I'm with you on that. I totally get it. All right, so moving on to our next shooting.
Back to the shooting. Back to the shooting.
Leads.
May 17th or 18th, the middle of the night, Saturday night, Golo gas station, Miami and Bowman. There was a man shot, non-fatal. He's stable. The victim was hospitalized after 6:45 p.m. And when he was shot, there's no ongoing threat. No one's in custody. It's unknown. Was it a typical gas station dispute, Rob? They don't. In Austin.
South Bend, Indy, Notre Dame plays football there. So I'm thinking it was a dispute over Notre Dame football. I could be. Go ahead. The Catholics versus convicts.
There were quite a few shootings, at least 10 to 12, quote unquote, random. They're calling them random. I can't see how you call them random when there's 10 to 12 shootings. 4 have been injured, 1 seriously. Suspects drove stolen vehicles, firing at random targets, including homes, apartments, and 2 fire stations. There was a spree from Saturday afternoon to Sunday morning. There were 3 teenagers arrested. They're in custody, 2 initially, a 3rd detained. There's potentially an additional suspect in addition to this. The motive was explicitly described as random, no clear motive. The chief noted the senseless nature, no gang ties mentioned, appears thrill or crime spree involving stolen cars and robberies. I want to know if they were coordinated. If the kids were.
Yeah, they had to have been. Now, again, I think I saw a picture of one of those kids, and I hate to, again, generalize, but we've had a lot of trans shootings lately. So my question is that, the problem, I'd actually need to look at that and see, because I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. All right, Nick, I'm going to be off chat for a second because I lost that. All right, so you skipped the the Michigan City, Indiana. Stupid name of town, Michigan City, Indiana.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean I was calling. Okay, so yeah, Michigan City, Indiana. That was 4:30 p.m. on May 15th. 14-year-old Devin Porter was shot, and Porter was found with life-threatening gunshot wound, pronounced dead later. The suspect or suspects are not named publicly. Investigation is ongoing. Police seeking info, looking for local videos. Motive is unknown. Victim and potential suspects may have known each other, which is often common in juvenile cases, but no gang or specific motive was released. Separate juvenile shooting, a graze wound occurred days earlier in the same city. Yeah, again, unknown if they're even related.
All right, so
Just a real quick wrap. Quick wrap up on that. Overall, U.S. gun violence metrics for 2026 year to date through mid-May show a continued downward trend in total shooting deaths and injuries compared to recent years. Q1 2026, there were 3,103 shooting deaths, which is the lowest first quarter figure in over a dozen years, down 500 from Q1 2025 and far below the 4,600 plus in the 2021 to 2023 peak. We had, no doubt, peaks in violence after our lockdown. The per capita rate hit a new low. Yeah, I'll just drop.
no, again, we're seeing the FBI saying, putting in all these things about them actually dealing with the mass murderers or the murder rates going down, and that's all great. I do like seeing that, but and I'll get back to that in a second. Go ahead.
Michigan City, Indiana is named that because of where it's located. It's actually sitting right on the border, and it's rumored that it was actually in Michigan to be.
It's funny you say that. Do you know one of the things the Texas legislature is looking at this session is whether or not we should take a few counties of New Mexico away from them and put them into Texas. I don't think that, we've talked about that before. That requires agreement from New Mexico, agreement from Texas, and then agreement by the U.S. Congress. It's not going to, because there's several areas where, like, I'm pretty sure that Eastern Washington State would like to secede and join Idaho. And then there's some areas, I believe, in Indiana that would like to join a different state as well. Go ahead.
I just want to say, on top of all of this that's going on every single weekend, we have not even hit summer. It's going to be very busy.
I agree. Before we get to your campaign update, and we'll get to that in just a second, Dr. A, I did want to comment on the FBI and something that has been bothering me. I do love what they're doing, and in terms of actually going after violent crime and actually going after things like that and people on their top 10 list. I just need them to go after the other criminals as well. And I feel like they are just blindly ignoring the criminals in our own government and doing nothing about that, but trying to get us to say, oh, you guys are they are great. You cannot complain about them taking murderers off the street. God bless them. I need them to be doing that. The problem is they're ignoring the criminals in the government, and I can't get past that, and I can't get past that because of what they did to me. I will never get past it. When you hear an FBI agent lying on the stand in your case, you're not going to get over that. Go ahead.
Here's my complaint about them. So you can tell me all the hundreds of thousands of people that were at the Capitol the 6th, but you can't tell me who the murderer was on Friday the 13th at 6 o'clock.
Exactly.
Same geolocation data, same cameras, same everything, but you can find all those thousands of people, but you can't find one. That's my complaint about them.
Agree. And wasn't there a recent tie to where, the camera, something to do with the initial film review was related, reviewer of the Epstein footage was actually related to a Democrat. Again, it just stinks. The whole thing stinks. The first disinfectant I'd like to do, if you make me king for a day, I am taking that sexual harassment slush fund they have, and I'm exposing every bit of it. Every Epstein John is coming out, period. Absolutely all of them. So now that I've said what I would do if I was king for a day, let's ask potential Congresswoman Griffiths if she was queen for. Give us an update on your campaign, ma'am.
So even if I make it, I won't be a queen, but there you go. Oh, actually, I did run around with a label.
Make sure you get protested by the no speaker.
Yeah, for sure. Opponent, the incumbent, has also been supporting the Tesla protests. It's terrible. And so you always ask me, how's it going? How's it going? So I decided to try and pull it all together. I'm officially 11 weeks into this, and 15 days now, 15 and a half, because there's still a few hours left today, 15 and a half days away from the close of the primary. And I just wanted to share an honest assessment of where things stand, both the encouraging signs and the significant challenges still. We're still early in the race, and I remain realistic about the scale of what it takes to compete in a congressional election, especially against an incumbent in a crowded field. I told you guys there's 7 people on single primary ballot. At the same time, there are meaningful indicators that our campaign is gaining traction far faster than many expect. Just in the first 10 weeks, we've exceeded the full cycle fundraising totals achieved by at least one previous conservative congressional challenger in this district 2 years ago. This is her 3rd time running. So last year's totals after the general, I've already been able to exceed. Our social media reach and engagement have surpassed what it took some prior campaigns years to build. We've established recognizable campaign branding, district-wide visibility, and growing grassroots engagement across Contra Costa and parts of Alameda County. More importantly than numbers, we're building genuine relationships throughout the district. It's been fun and challenging. The campaign has already involved extensive door knocking and constituent conversations, meetings with local law enforcement and community leaders, district-wide filming and storytelling efforts, policy development focused on affordability, public safety, water, accountability, and trust in government. Funny conversation we were just having. And the steady construction of a volunteer and support network rooted in real community concern. That said, I don't mistake online momentum for electoral success. Winning or even becoming structurally competitive requires a lot broader things like coalition building, expanding donor infrastructure, field organization, absentee and ballot chase operations, otherwise known as ballot harvesting in California, which is encouraged and legal. Earned media and continued outreach far beyond traditional Republican circles. And no, California GOP hasn't given me a penny, and that's a whole nother thing in and of itself. I won't even get their endorsement because of the lies of one of my opponents. This district, yeah.
After the primary, if you're one of the two, will you get their endorsement and some money?
I don't know, Larry. I am pitchy tied with them right now.
I understand. Trust me, I really do. But that's a conversation we'll have offline.
Because they want credit for no, they pulled the rug out from underneath me in my primary, so I don't even know that I would. I don't know.
Don't say anything online.
Don't say anything.
Exactly. I get it. All right. So do you believe, like, have you seen any polling? I mean, and I know polling is expensive, and that's why you probably haven't done it, because you're using your money for voter outreach. Again, folks, when you're running a limited campaign financially, you have choices to make. Do I poll, or do I actually, continue to try and gain votes? So have you seen any polling?
And okay, Ava's then no polling. Even if there was at this stage of the game, 12 days out, or what I say, 15 and a half days, what would I change? And that's a serious question. If I have a little bit of money available, is it too late to get an email campaign going on if I haven't already yet set one up? The money I would have preferred, I completely appreciate everyone's support. If I'd had it 3 or 4 weeks ago, I could have created a lot more infrastructure with it, right? So now I'm like, okay, now what?
I get it completely, because it wasn't until January that I got my first $10,000 check. So I know exactly where you're coming from. But since I have a marketing expert as my producer here, Nick, one of the things that they say, or they like, and I say they being traditional politicians, is they will send out mailers, things that actually get into your mailbox, knowing that you have to at least glance. Those, for about 10,000 voters, are roughly, I'm going to say $8,000. I'm sorry, for 15,000 voters, roughly about $8,000, $8,000 to $10,000. In terms of social media outreach, if you were to take $8,000 to $10,000, what could you actually achieve? Nick, I see your video. Yeah. Could you actually do with $10,000 in 15 days?
So $10,000 in 15 days, you're talking about $1,000 a day in ads. I would just put a 10x multiplier on that. So if you're going to invest $1,000 a day, expect to have at least 10,000 views on your brand.
Now, I know you calculate it. I think we had an ad spend of $100 a day.
That is correct.
And at one point, and what were we getting? What was our return on?
That is a great question. I do not have that on the top of my head.
Okay. Again, Dr. A, that's something that I do encourage you, if you've got a media person working with you, to look at. And I can get you that information because Nick sent it to me in a brief previously. But I do think social media advertisements are a cheaper way to go. So if you are waging a guerrilla campaign, I would recommend that. Go ahead, Nick.
It's not just less expensive, it's tracked.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You don't know whether or not they've actually looked at it.
Correct. And then you can measure from, hey, they saw the brand. Did they interact with the brand? And what interactions did they have along with it?
Right. So the whole thing there was we had to, and again, these are one of the things you learn as you go through the campaign process. Is, my website was built and it was good, but it wasn't trackable. It didn't link to things. It didn't have things on it that we needed. And so Nick ran, various choices on advertisements, and then whichever one drew the most attention was the one that we got that pulled you into the ad. So again, that's how you actually run an online marketing campaign. And so hopefully, Dr. A, you have somebody doing that for you. Go ahead.
Actually, I want to hear what Dr. A's.
Yeah. Do you have somebody doing that? Okay. So again, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, you can say, well, you only got 34% of the vote, where the other guy got 53%. I will tell you, I truly believe that my best spend was on two things, and that was signs on the roads and then media. Through Nick. Basically, Facebook and other things. We weren't able to square the Google thing quick enough, but we will next time. And so, again, there's just... That's where you're going to get your most bang for your buck. So if you're wondering what to spend your money on the last few days of the campaign, that's what I would recommend. Because I do think it matters. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap for the day with a couple of quotes. Now, I briefly mentioned it in the opening rant, if you will. But the Screw Tape Letters was one of those things that I read as a teenager that was very disturbing. All right, and I've resisted. When something like that is disturbing, I find that I often can't get back to it because it really made me think for a long time. There's a great movie out, and I will get the name of it. I can't think of it right now, but it was about a demon that had possessed a man that had killed someone, and a psychiatrist interviewing him to determine whether or not he was sane to be executed. Whew. That one just sent me on about a 2-week, good Lord, what's going on in this place. All right, so let's talk about the Screw Tape Letters. There's 3 quotes from it that I want to. All right. Indeed, the safest road to hell is the gradual one. The gentle slope, soft, underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without sign. That's how the devil wants to guide you into. Now, what did the demon, all right, Wormwood was his name, tell his young nephew about courage? Courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point, which means at the point of highest reality. You only really know you're courageous when you're scared. All right. And the last is, do not be deceived, Wormwood. Our cause is never more in danger than when a human, no longer desiring but still intending to do our enemies, looks around upon a universe from which every trace of him seems to have vanished, and asks why he has been forsaken and still obeyed. So I want to leave you with this thought for the week. Be that human that still obeys your creator, still shows courage in the face of evil, and rejects the slow, easy road to hell. God bless each and every one of you. God bless our great nation. God bless you, Dr. A, and your campaign efforts. And I hope all of you have a tremendously good week. Southern, God bless you and your family as you continue to do the Lord's work.